Go, mine's not connected.
You ready, Pete?
I may reboot my computer altogether.
Ready? Christine, ready? Medfield TV, are we ready? Yes, we're all ready. Okay. We can go ahead and get started. We'll just keep Pete right up there on that main screen. So you can keep your eye
That makes
on
up
him.
for my computer not wanting to work
Make
right.
sure he doesn't fall asleep in the middle of one of these meetings. Okay, well, welcome to the May 20th edition of the Medfield Select Board. Just a couple of administrative points first. Recognize people here in the room. This meeting is being video recorded and transmitted over Medfield TV. There are people, anyone outside who wants to log in to watch the meeting. If you're not watching it through a live stream on Medfield TV, you can get it using the Zoom link that you can find in the agenda for tonight's meeting. Select Board. We good?
Keep going, we're good.
Oh.
Yep, we're getting some feedback, so we're just
Oh,
mics
okay,
and fixing
got
it
it,
right now.
okay.
There we go. Thank you.
There we go. I thought you were signaling.
You didn't
Pete
want
was
to hear
already
the
asleep or
echo
something.
of-
Okay.
No, it's,
For anyone who's new, and most of you have been here before, but we have two microphones, one at the lectern there and one right there. If you do want to speak, we'd ask you to come up and identify yourself and your address so people know. The microphones don't amplify your voice, so the only reason the microphones are there is so that we have the audio feed for Medfield TV. So just because it doesn't do anything doesn't mean it's not doing anything. But if we have you at the microphone, people can hear what you have to say and it'll come through better on TV. Ordinarily, at the start of our meetings, we usually take some time just to reflect on service members that are defending the country across the world. But at least on the meeting before Memorial Day, I've used this meeting to start and ask for a moment of silence for those who have given their lives in defense of our country over the years. I'm going to break even with that tradition slightly, and I'll ask all of you to also keep in your hearts the high school senior, Eva LaRoe, who unexpectedly passed away at the start of this month, and her parents, and her twin sister, and her brother. Losses of a family member are always excruciating, but some of them maybe are a little bit more poignant because of timing and circumstances, and I think this is one of those times. So I'd ask you to keep both our veterans, patriots that have defended the country, but also the LaRoe family in your heart and in your mind tonight for a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, we have as a first appointment, public hearing regarding the renewal of cable television license of Comcast Cable Communications Management LLC. This is a 10-year renewal from June 1st, 2025 to May 31st, 2035. I hereby declare this public hearing open. And I forget how we start here. Christine, do you start with
Bill Solomon, our attorney, is here.
Okay.
And
Oh,
he
he's here.
will-
That's
yep,
great. Okay.
He's here on Zoom, so
Great.
let's
Okay.
promote Bill. Hi, Bill.
Apologize. So would you like, did you ask me to comment on the license? I apologize, I was joining as a panelist and I couldn't hear.
Yes, if you can kick off the public hearing and walk us through.
Sure, okay, thank you very much, appreciate that. All right, so we did discuss this license before, but as you know, it's the Comcast cable license renewal. It's a 10-year license renewal. The current license is also 10 years, whereas the Verizon license, the last two have been 5 years with certain other provisions. We think that's in the interest of the town and of Comcast. The bank access operating support is now 4.95%. Go to that. 4.95% of the gross revenues of Comcast and its affiliates, and the maximum allowed of the Cable Act is 5%, and it's just 0.5% less than that. there's some advantage, in some ways there are some advantages to that, not being 5% under current interpretation of the Cable Act. The PEG capital, which is the issue that was most negotiated, the PEG is Public Education and Government Access Community Television capital funding, in addition to the 4.95% of gross revenues, is paid in continues to be paid in two parts. One is a fixed dollar amount of $120,000 over 10 years, or $12,000 a year, beginning July 1st, and 0.25% of gross revenues is also paid as capital. That's paid quarterly together with the 4.95%. You continue to have a high definition channel, and let me go to, and so that they continue to have the right to have that. So what's going to happen with the PEG channels is that within 24 months, Comcast is going to take the 3 standard definition PEG access channels and going to upgrade the quality of that standard definition to what's called serial digital interface, better picture and better sound. And in addition to that, they'll make available 1 high definition PEG access channel. So there'll be at that point 4 PEG access channels rather than the current 3. However, within no less than 12 months after that HD channel is provided together with the upgrade of the SD channels, Comcast will have a right to reclaim one of the standard definition channels if it wants. It may not want to. The town certainly has a good use for that, but that'll be up to Comcast. As part of that process, that Comcast will provide a invoice for its cost of its electronics for the high definition interface equipment. Typically, that should be about $3,000, maybe $3,500. The license provides that it could not exceed $10,000. We expect that to be about $3,000. In addition to that, the service to residents, the availability of cable service stays the same, and the standard installation stays the same. The service, the availability of service, so let me just go to that provision, is that they, Comcast makes service available to all residents. And that is very important because there are many communities that have the density of a town like Medfield, but where there are density requirements. If there are not certain number of homes, then the cable company is not obligated to build out. So that if there are any benefits, everyone has the right to get cable service. That's also true for the Verizon license. In addition to that, I'll just say generally that the license is very protective of the town's public right of way, its financial interest, its, and if there's any better license in the Commonwealth with Comcast, and we're proud of that. And then finally, there are 2 side letters. A senior discount, it's not a lot, $2 off standard service. There's some financial qualifications that are now further broadened. There's more ways to qualify. And in explanation of Comcast providing that, it's not, a senior discount cannot be required under the Cable Act. It's voluntary. Lots of companies have no senior discount. Verizon, as an overbuild, it does not have a senior discount. Some incumbent cable companies in places served by other companies don't have a senior discount. To Comcast credit, it does have that. And then we also have another side letter that provides that if Comcast going forward provides more than 1 high definition channel as part of what it does, or if it provides the electronic program guide, which is the way, as you know, to look at programming, but the electronic program guide for PEG access programming, If it does that elsewhere in the first 6 years of the license, then Comcast will need to come to Medfield, if requested by the board, and discuss not only the technical feasibility and the financial feasibility of doing the same in Medfield, but actually providing similar or the same services. The reason that's helpful is that that's a marker to say we discussed it, and if that happens, then please come here and talk about providing it in Medfield. Absent that side letter, what can happen is if you're 4 or 5 years down the path of a license and Comcast now is providing those services to other towns, a company could say to a town, well, your license is up in 4 years or 5 years, that's the time for us to discuss that. Medfield will be able to say that, no, we thought about this and we agreed that if you did provide those services elsewhere, you'd come to Medfield and discuss providing it. Finally, a great cable team. Brittany, keeps the trains running on time as best that anyone could do. And it took a while, but the proof's in the pudding. And Katie, as you know, have a great access director and invaluable for the ascertainment report she did, which helped us convince Comcast that there's a great need and community interest in Medfield. And together, there are no better proofreaders. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. It's a strong license. I recommend the board, in a changing world of video and finance, the board issue the license if it sees it the same way.
Eileen?
Well, so in looking through the contract, you did confirm one of the things. I couldn't remember if the previous one was 10 years, and you're saying our Verizon one is 5.
Yes, yeah, that's standard for both.
And then in theirs, they say if we, as a town, I forget the terminology, how we're tagged in the contract, if we were to do another contract with another group and they were given better terms, then the licensee would ask for a meeting to sit down and discuss. So when we do a contract like this, do we get to compare our rates to what, let's say, Dover's getting, Walpole's getting, Westwood's getting, so that we're getting favored terms just like our neighbors?
Yes, well, yeah, it's not a matter of law, but it's just, thank you, Christine, but it's a matter of just good practice. So yes, I'm familiar with, and, Katie is also, and through the process, Brittany, finds out about, what's done elsewhere. I would say that with respect to the financial aspects of this license, that it's in the top 5% of all licenses in the Commonwealth. And then recently, Comcast is changing how it wants to provide PEG capital funding. They're looking to do it on a per subscriber basis, so that if subscribers change, they would pay different amounts. What we have in this blended method is a fixed dollar amount, which is a good dollar amount of $120,000, and the 0.25% of gross revenues. That could change, but that's a far better way for a town to get that capital than it would be to have it based on how many subscribers are with the company any particular quarter. So the answer is yes, we're familiar with licenses all around, and as I said, it's in the top 5%. I'm confident with respect to financial support, and that's because Comcast, and to great credit of Pat Sherns, the government affairs manager, it's a company that still is local. So they know the people, they know Katie, they know the folks in the town they've got to meet, and that they respond when, as in Medfield, there's a substantive presentation of the needs and capital plans and current programming and current operations, that Pat Sherns and Comcast responded to that. And then with respect to the legal document, it's a very strong cable license. The thing that I focus on is trying to prevent provisions that could be used later on to take advantage of changing videos circumstances. So this is a cable license, it's not an internet license. And as a result, that if there are changes going forward in the video world, then that's outside of the cable license. And this license prevents either side from trying to claim some advantage or disadvantage later on. And so in that respect, it's also an excellent license. So, you know, can fully support and recommend that it's very favorable compared to other licenses. And, you know, they're all not all, a lot of them, most of them, Comcast ones are online, so I and others can get to look and see how they compare.
Okay, I just found it interesting that it was really a one-sided term, where they require us to say we will sit down, but we don't have the mutual to say if we pick something up, unless, and again, this is what you do for a living, so if you say, no, Eileen, don't worry about it, I have the ability to.
I'm sorry. So the answer, the quick answer to that is, that's right. And part of that is because there's many other licenses out there that, you know, it would be hard to have a most favored nation, level playing field the other way. And critically important to here is that this level playing field provision only allows Comcast to compare to other parties who have a cable franchise, cable license with the town. So unlike, you know, in some other instances, generally not Comcast, but, you know, sometimes it had been, companies, cable companies want to say, well, if someone provides satellite TV and that's hurting our business, or that hits better terms and we can't control them, then we want something better. Or that some company comes along that does streaming that gets granted location to be in your public way, and you gave them permission, which you probably don't have the right to totally deny, and they want to say that we also therefore want to pay you nothing. So the important part with respect to their level playing field, it only applies to another company that has a cable license with the town of Medfield, and we control that ourselves, so that we know, for instance, that with respect to financial support, that the preceding Verizon license is equally as strong, just as we know that this license is strong enough such that Verizon wouldn't have a reasonable basis. So we can control that. If it was the other way around, there's so many communities out there that, you know, it would be almost impossible for them to address. So it is not mutual, but the lack of mutuality doesn't hurt us in any way.
Yeah, and I looked at that, and the only reason it alarmed me in a sense was, I'm a geek, right? So 10 years in this space, and you just commented, which actually is a little reassuring, that this is strictly cable, not streaming. So I definitely see, I mean, one would argue that cable will be going away. In 10 years, we might even be laughing and saying it's not even the same way in which we watch TV. So that's why the 10-year window is like, it's kind of so long, considering this environment has evolved pretty dramatically in the last 10, and I see it changing dramatically in the next 10.
Exactly. So I always say it's like a long-term mortgage. You know, access corps, just like towns, you know, want certainty and don't like lack of certainty. And the knowledge that it's a 10-year license, it's a set dollar amount, in large part on capital, and otherwise is related to revenues, are all in the town's interest. So that's why, from my perspective, it's always in the interest of town. And I think Comcast too in certain ways, because they don't have to keep on doing the same thing and spend time and effort and money. But it's always in the interest of town to have a longer license. So if a license, if someone isn't happy with a license on the town side, the response is not to a shorter license, but make sure that you're pleased with the results. And in this case, the financial results are, well, a good two-way street, are helpful to continue to build your program. Long-term, medium-term, long-term, there's no question. Depending on, you know, if trends continue, all towns will have to consider, you know, what's going to happen with respect to the financial support of community television. But for now, this is a strong license, although it does get affected, obviously, if revenues go down. One last point of that, the subscriber numbers have gone down more than the revenue has. The prices go up, cable companies sell more services, so that while there, certainly been a reduction in cable subscribers, and I apologize, I had it in my summary, I can take a look, to compare Medfield to other communities. But for now, what we're doing is making the Comcast cable program that much better by giving them programming that people want to see. There's sports and government meetings and cultural events and religious life. It makes Comcast a stronger company. At the same time, that funding supports that community program.
And then I just had one more comment, and really, Katie, it kind of goes to you. When I read through the PEG section, to me, I was like, it really falls back to you guys. Are you pleased with what's in the PEG? Or you feel like it's addressing the needs of Medfield TV?
Yes, I do. I think that the $120,000 over the 10 years is fair. I think the 0.25% gross annual revenue is also fair. That's what a lot of other communities receive. And then moving our franchise fee up to 4.95%, I think is the highest that we could receive,
Okay.
Without hitting that 5% mark. And like Bill said, running into potentially some issues at receiving that full 5%. So I'm definitely happy with the terms of the
Okay,
license.
that was important, reading through it. Okay. Good, thank you, Bill.
Pete?
Thank you.
Bill, first of all, I really respect your expertise and appreciate you getting the town the best deal possible on this, so thank you for that. I just have sort of a policy question, which is I know that there's a structural problem with these PEG fees and the fact that the monies are going to keep diminishing, I think. Isn't that correct? And that we're going to have to figure out another way to structure how to pay for Medfield TV eventually. Do you have any sort of wisdom or solution?
So yes, streaming companies though are having more trouble not raising their rates, and but that said, that some streaming companies now have more sports, so there's a trend. That trend has slowed in certain ways, but will likely continue. But there's no guarantee in the future that the cable may not strengthen. As you know, there's now a second biggest company is buying the third biggest company. But so the answer is, frankly, down the line, if the town deems community television to be important, which it is, I think it's what distinguishes Massachusetts from many states and distinguishes towns like Medfield from a whole bunch of communities, not all, but that don't have the same level of community television. The town will have to look at funding, the provision of funding for that, and I think it's something you want to not be behind the curve on, but I think for now, short term, I think that things can be managed, but 3 years down the line and afterwards, I think the board would either directly or with the committee want to take a look at what the options are. As Katie will even know more than I would certainly, there's a bill that may or may not pass in the legislature that would provide some funding from streaming services that use a public way in some way. And my guess is the board's probably supported that. Katie would know where it stands. Hope Springs Eternal, it always seems like it's pretty close. And I haven't followed it for about 3 or 4 months. I do know that they're continuing to make some progress. That bill would be helpful. It wouldn't be a total substitute, but it would certainly provide needed funding, part of which would go to PEG access entities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was aware of the legislation that Bill was referring to, and that's all I was going to mention.
So Bill, my questions or comments are nowhere near as interesting as the ones that Eileen and Pete had. First, on page 51, which is the notification addresses, the zip codes for Medfield are wrong. It should be 02052.
Yep.
It's like 01841 or something.
Thank you.
This is like a 58-page contract, and I spotted that. Let the record show that. The other thing I had, also page 54, we just need to update the signature block on that. It's written for Eileen as the chair, and I suppose this one we probably.
It's all on you, buddy. Your son.
Yeah, no, I was thinking that's the case, and I think we could just, if you don't sign it tonight, I think it's best to
Well, we'll
retype
vote,
that page
yeah.
and then have it
Yeah,
signed.
if you want, we can vote it. I can cross out, I'll still sign as chair,
Yeah.
we'll just change. the
I know,
Sure,
name.
that's fine.
whatever you
So
want.
that's fine, we'll do, pen and ink works, I just pointed that out. And then the only question I did have, there, on page 55, there's the list of drops in the town. I think they're the free drops that Comcast is providing to the town. So there's this list, and of course, I start going, looking for which town buildings are not on the list. The first one that jumped out at me is the water and sewer treatment plant has it, but the DPW garage does not. Just found that interesting.
What do we have down there? I think we
Seemed
have our
like-
connection because the Comcast building is down there, isn't that where our connection is?
It's not 99 Bridge Street, is it?
That's
That's-
No, 99 Bridge
Yeah.
Street is the wastewater treatment
Well,
plant.
that's the wastewater treatment
Yeah.
plant.
Well, there's two things on that. One is, with whether or not, you could take a look to see where they have it. But better than that is that we can add a building to this at any time.
Okay.
So if Comcast doesn't, want to put it down if it doesn't have service. So I think my recommendation would be to look to see if it has service. And if it does, we'll just
Got it. Okay.
we'll memorialize that.
Then
And if
my
it doesn't
second-
have service,
Then
then
I also-
we can add it separately pursuant to the license to say we'd like service added.
Okay,
So we're okay. Thanks for
Okay.
pointing it out though. And if the town administrator's office could take a look, that'd be great.
so then on the list of schools, the one school that was missing was Dale Street. However, Memorial School was listed, so I wasn't sure whether Memorial School as the site was just happened to be the school that was called out. Again, I would have assumed if Memorial School and the high school and middle school have, and Wheelock have it, I assume Dale Street has it. I just couldn't tell whether one drop served the whole site or not, so.
I don't know, I'll have to look. I don't know if
This
they
is
have
how my
fiber or
mind
not.
works.
Yeah.
And, what we can do with that is I'll speak to Pat Sherns, a Comcast rep in the morning. He'll have his list.
Okay.
We'll hear from the town administrator. And I think there's one or two, what we could do is we can just take a vote to update if needed, as needed,
Okay.
that list.
Yep.
So we can change the exhibit,
Okay.
certainly timely enough. So I'll speak to Pat Sherns
Okay.
and I'll coordinate with Brittany.
Okay. Those were my only comments. Are there any comments from the public? Or anybody out there watching through Medfield TV? It doesn't look like there are any. Mark?
Yeah, Bill, so just for the total picture, they have a significant facility, a head-end facility at the DPW that was constructed, it's under a separate agreement. So I don't know whether there's any connection from that to the building.
They actually pay a lease for that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not really trying to start any trouble here. It's just that I found it interesting. They weren't on the list, and I figured it was water and sewer treatment plant. It must be to be able to watch sports and things like that, but maybe DPW would have some operational reasons that they'd want to be on. I don't know.
The Dale Street School wasn't listed, I thought maybe it was just so old.
Yeah, maybe it could be. Yeah, maybe they're holding out. I don't know. Everybody's using hotspots from their cell phones. Okay, I don't see any questions online or in the room, so I'll declare the public hearing closed and then entertain a motion to.
I would move to renew the cable television license of Comcast Cable Communications Management LLC from June 1, 2025 to May 31, 2035. 35, yep.
And if I could, based on Bill's
Mr.
comment.
Chairman, if I would add, and just add, apologize, Ms. Clever. And if you would, and I should have said this earlier, and if you would also in that vote acknowledge the two signed letters from Comcast, so there's a record in your minutes, whether it's,
So we'll sign the contract and recognize the two side letters that were negotiated in conjunction with the contract.
thank you.
All right, ready for me to second? All right, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your help with
Mark.
this.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
And the people from Medfield TV are smiling, so I think we've done a good job with our first item in today's meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys do a great job. Okay, our second appointment is Joe Opila to discuss a sign to recognize King Philip's War and a potential sign to discuss a sign to recognize King Philip's War and a potential sign, the physical manifestation of that potential sign, recognizing the event somewhere on town property.
Yeah, so
Take it away.
we're just talking about one sign. Okay, I have some, it's great to be here. Thank you for giving me some time to talk to you about what I'm interested in doing here. Just to give you some background about my request and about the proposal. I did provide a summary, a pretty detailed summary of the things as they stand at the moment. But let me just give you some background on how I got to be here to make this request. So I live at 22 Lee Road. I've been there for 27 years. I've been the event coordinator for the Medfield Historical Society for the last 2 years. I've been a member of our historical commission since 2019. I've learned to have an appreciation for the history of the town over that period of time. I have for the last 3 years narrated the trolley tour on Medfield History Weekend that considers some of the historical places, events, and people in Medfield. One event which I highlight on this tour, and which is arguably the most important event, and certainly the most important single day in Medfield's town history, is the Native American attack on February 21st, 1676. It's been striking to me that there's no marker in town that's focused on this important date in Medfield's history. I brought this up with David Temple, former longtime president of the Historical Society, and other members of the Historical Society. The interim co-presidents are present here today. I've also talked in detail with Richard DeSorger, the town historian, about this. Both agreed that a marker for this purpose would be worthwhile and an important initiative. Richard shared with me that he tried to do something along these lines about 10 years ago, and the effort came for naught. He was glad to hear that somebody is picking up the ball 10 years later. The awareness of the attack and kind of the reevaluation of its importance to not only Medfield's history, but American history, I think has become more accentuated in the interim. To that point, we recently had a presentation in the library on behalf of the Medfield Historical Society and the library on King Philip's War. 80 people showed up. We had to turn people away. It was standing room only. So both David and Richard strongly encouraged me to pursue this, and both strongly support it. They wanted me to make that clear to all of you. The idea of the marker has also been discussed with board members of the Medfield Historical Society and with the members of the Historical Commission. Support for this marker is unanimous among the membership. So, I am therefore proposing and seeking approval for a historical marker to be erected somewhere centrally located in town, which will be visible to both pedestrian and road traffic, to heighten awareness for the significant event and date in Medfield history. Note there are other historical markers in other towns across the state that commemorate events and people in King Philip's War in Sudbury, Norton, Scituate, and Mendon. Those are the ones that are closer to us. The proposed marker will have copy written entirely by Richard, subject to the review of the Historical Commission and the Historical Society, and yourselves if you're so interested. But the purpose is to educate about the event and its context, to describe the event in straightforward terms, and to have a marker that reflects the style of other historical markers like the one in front of the Peak House, which was put there in 1930. Okay. Some possible locations that have been discussed. Nothing is final. It's subject to many approvals, but Meeting House Pond, Baxter Park, possibly the townhouse. Okay, I understand the sign advisory board, the historical district commission, if it's in the historical district, and the wayfinding committee will need to be consulted on the design, size, and location of the marker. There will also be continuing consultation with the Historical Society board members and the Historical Commission on the text, the marker design, and the location. So there you have it. That's my request and my proposal. I've made a lot of efforts to get to this point. I have a lot of information. Please, any questions?
Why has it been shot down in the past?
It wasn't shot down. It's only, I think Richard had an idea. He discussed with me that he wanted a sign placed at the former garrisons. There were 5 garrisons in town. They're on the periphery of the town. None of them are in the center of the town, I don't believe. He said something about he just couldn't get the funding for it, and it was possibly a lot of effort at that time.
So, I mean, my gut response is I don't have anything against it, especially reading through your document and recognizing that next year we'll be celebrating the 375th anniversary of Medfield, that it could be a nice event throughout the year. I know that Marion Benaldi's kind of spearheading the 375th anniversary committee, so it's something that could be kind of folded under if it makes sense. I mean, again, the plaque, the placement, there's still TBDs, but in the spirit of what you're trying to do and why you're doing it and the significance of the history of Medfield, I don't see why not.
I think it's a wonderful idea, and I really thank you, Joe, for presenting it, bringing it forward, and it sounds like you're going to follow through and make it happen. So, I have this feeling that there is so much history in Medfield that the more that we can let people know about that history, the better off we are. And of course, that war was very complicated in many ways. Yeah. So,
well, that war set the tone for the next 200 years of American history.
Yep.
In terms of
and I've heard
taking land and displacing
Native Americans.
Peoples.
Yeah. And I've heard Richard say that it was the bloodiest war in American history in terms of population.
Well, per capita, the bloodiest war in New England history. Yeah.
So, I think it's a great idea, and my just personal reaction is that if we can get the sign on a more heavily trafficked roadway, that more people would see it.
Yeah.
So I guess I might think out front of the town hall might be a great place, but it's up to you guys.
Well, I mean, in discussing it with Richard and my intent, so these historical markers that were put in the state in 1930, other states have more active programs. Massachusetts does not. New Hampshire has an ongoing program. Vermont has an ongoing program.
They fund it, you mean?
They fund it and they maintain it, and they have people regularly proposing historical markers. So that hasn't happened in Massachusetts for some period of time. I don't know what happened with the Peak House sign. Clearly, it's been renovated. There were 300 markers placed in the state in 1930. There's about 180 remaining. Norton actually took an initiative to place markers. They did a different style. They placed, kind of more discrete markers in out-of-the-way places that are the actual locations of hiding places of Native Americans and swamp battles and such. So I actually did take some lead from them in terms of finding a vendor and talking about how they raised their funds for this. I don't think raising funds for it's going to be a cost of about $3,500 to $4,000. We can, the Historical Society will support that, but there are other ways that we can raise that money fairly easily.
Might get a legislative earmark
Well, yes, the Senate just had 10 million in earmarks for the leadership. Just like the speaker had 25 million for his garage in Quincy.
Well, okay on that, yeah.
So we have to invite the speaker, I guess, to be part
Yeah.
of his district, maybe.
Yeah. Do you have any, Yeah, I think it's important, so to have a sign that's two-sided, and it's, you know, so the townhouse is good for traffic, Meeting House Pond is good for traffic, pedestrian and, road traffic, and Baxter Park as well.
So the only thing I want to throw in there, because I'm on the wayfinding committee,
Yes.
is we're literally, we met with our contract group last Friday, and there are wayfinding signs that will be going up over the next 9 months or so, and the one for the town hall could be rather significant.
Yeah.
So I don't, that's such limited space that, so something that I heard Pete say that I just want to make sure that, I do want to make sure that we have some say on where it finally ends up.
Oh, yeah.
Not saying we have final say, but I need to make sure that we avoid any chaos and craziness that all of a sudden something shows up and
Yeah.
we're aware of other things going on.
No, I mean, Chris, you're also part of the wayfinding committee,
Yeah.
so, I mean, we're gonna coordinate with that committee in particular. I
Good.
mean, we don't want signs fighting with each other.
Right.
And, and if it's on town property, then you do get the final say
Okay.
as to where it's
Yeah.
located.
Okay.
Yeah. Put that out there.
Okay, there we go.
So I have approval to go forward? I mean,
You do have
I
a-
had
One more guy,
couple
yeah.
comments. I think it's a good idea as well, and I think the timing is good. These are thoughts, not guidance, not anything, just thoughts. When I read through your proposal, there were a couple of things that just hit in my head around what would I think about if I was trying to figure out how to do this. First thought is, I think that I would be inclined to look to the historical organizations in the town to advise us on what would be the most meaningful way for us to do this. So my predisposition is to let you feel like you can think about this and come up with what you think would be the most impactful thing, and I'd be at least predisposed to probably go along with your advice, because you have the interest. The fact that Richard is the one that would draft what the sign says gives me confidence. I think Pete talked about how complicated the situation is, but I'll say it is complex, and I think it's best to describe something in a way that might not have been the way it would have been described in the early 20th century as a lopsided thing.
I think you're right about
It's
that.
far better to intrigue people with something that they read a story and they're not left with, this is clearly what it was, because it's like, there's more to the fact that King Philip was the son of the one Indian chief who probably did more to ensure that the settlers actually survived the first winter. I don't know if there's this biography of King Philip, but I would actually like to read it, because
Yeah.
if there's anybody that knows that story, I'd be curious to understand how one thing was this, and the next generation, it was so much in the other direction. I've always been.
Oh, well,
intrigued by
actually, you
that.
should have come to our presentation
I-
at the library. They did
before,
talk
and
about
I
that.
couldn't on the night that you did, couldn't, but
I tried
would
to
have been
sign
one-
up and got shut out.
Yeah, I would have been one of the stragglers who would
No,
never
there's
have gotten
actually
to building the first
stages
one.
of how America perceived the Native Americans and their right to be here, and it blew hot and cold over the American history.
So my point is, I'm confident that our town historian will bring the proper perspective.
Of course.
To do that.
I'd recommend Nathaniel Philbrook's Mayflower
Okay.
as a, giving the perspective
Well-
that led up to it.
Mhm.
So Nathaniel Philbrick, interesting you mentioned him. He wrote a foreword for the gentleman's book that did the presentation at the library. They're acquainted with each other. I mean, believe me, with all sensitivity. We will actually, Richard and I, agree that we need to consult with the Wampanoags in particular and have them look at the copy
Okay.
and
Yeah.
weigh in however they want to.
So here's my other thoughts. One, the idea of designing a sign that somehow is coherent. I guess right now, the only sign it might need to be coherent with is the Peak House sign. But in terms of thinking about things like this, King Philip's War is not the only noteworthy historic event in Medfield. So that if, in my head, I'm saying it would be a good idea, and again, I put it on probably the Historical Society's shoulders, just because I don't know who else would be more qualified, not to necessarily say, let's put out 35 signs to tell the history of Medfield between now and our next big celebration coming up in a year, but if people don't know the history of their town unless they get a chance to see it. And there's a lot of things about this town that are worth giving people a chance to see. So over the long term, if we had a way of developing signs like this that you could tell were coherently organized, and you could find them in places. Probably the big signs have to be in the places that are highly visible. I kind of like what you said that Richard DeSorga was saying. I'd love to have a sign in every place where there was a stockade, but those are probably little signs. It's like.
Well, and they're out of way places. People, there's not a lot of foot traffic
Right.
these days.
Well,
at
some of the
those places.
signs I remember the most, there's a gravestone on the border of Rhode Island and Connecticut. In Connecticut, down in Stonington, that's the burial site of somebody during the Revolutionary War for Rhode Island, who basically donated money to the government to fund the war and never got paid back. And this gravestone says this guy insisted that he was not willing to be buried in the state that welched on the debt. Now, I found that because we were out bike riding one time. It's out somewhere in this little street, but those things are cool. Paris, there's a spot, there's a mark on the side of a building that talks about this is the building where Ben Franklin signed at the end of the Revolutionary War. This is where it was signed over in France, the paperwork. And it's like, some of that stuff that you just run across makes more of an impact on you, but that's not to preclude the bigger picture stories that people can see.
Yeah, I mean, just so, narrating the trolley tour, and when I stop on Bridge Street and I talk about the Indians crossing the river valley and sneaking into town, I mean, I have a rapt audience when I'm telling that story. And they don't all, the people who are on that tour are not aware of that story, and it's, enchanting, kind of awe-inspiring to those people, and it just also further inspired me to think, man, more people need to know about the history of the Native American presence in this area before the settlers dug in.
So anyway, those are the random.
Yeah, well, one other spot that would be a perfect place for a marker of this sort would be the hospital. That certainly is a huge building, an important kind of marker in terms of the history of.
King Philip's Overlook's right on the other side of the river, as I understand it.
Yeah.
And
Well, there-
they actually went up and overlooked Medfield from that rock formation. that you-
At the overlook, like the
Yeah.
overlook's
You
on
go
our
from
side.
You go to Sherman, go up that way.
Yeah.
So the hospital, that overlook is historical? I wasn't aware of that.
No.
You're saying across.
The
It's
Sherburne
not that
side
high.
has the King Philip overlook.
Yeah.
It's the rock face facing the
Yeah.
field.
I mean, so one limitation we have with a marker like this is you can pretty much only put it on it about 120 words.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of detail we will have to leave out. But to somewhat offset that, these markers now can include QR codes.
Excellent.
And Richard has written, extraordinarily
The other,
amount of stuff about this Medfield battle, in particular, the war in general. So we would include a lot of, information that, somebody who looks at the sign can access through the QR code as well.
so one other thought I had was ideally, and I don't know if you can do this, ideally, if it's a place that's visible, but it's also a place that's geographically significant to the point. When I saw Meeting House Pond, in my head, I said, boy, I would expect a sign there to point out that this was the first meeting house. So it's like you probably don't want a whole bunch of big signs, so maybe that's not a good idea. But not because it's not a good idea from a visibility standpoint. It's almost like you need to have an idea of what some of those other potential signs could be to decide whether you want to use that parking space
Well,
for,
to that point, Jeff Sauter reminded me of the Dwight Derby House, that site at Meeting House Pond was the site of the great gun cannon that was lent to Medfield when they became aware that there was a Native American attack in the offing. And I don't know if it was that gun was fired, the cannon was fired, that kind of began the end of the battle and scared the Native Americans away and allowed Medfield to stay for another day. Other towns weren't so fortunate. Two towns that week were attacked and abandoned as a result of the raid. Medfield stood. So that's an important, event that way.
comments from the floor?
Just a great idea.
Okay, yep, all right, everybody likes it.
You do have an online comment.
So my next step was
We do have an online comment. This is from Jeanette Rule. Will the native term for the war also be referred to? It said Metacom, but that's
The war itself?
I-
We're gonna refer to the Sachem, Nashaway, I believe his name was, Monaco. So we'll use his name on the marker. That's in the first draft of the marker, so he was the leader of the invaders who were attacking. I don't know the word, but, so is that Jeanette?
Well, yeah, Jeanette, she put down
Look that up and I'll make
Metacom,
it-
so Metacom,
I'll
but,
share that with Richard and,
yeah.
But that was the chief, Medicom.
yeah, but we definitely want to, consult with Wampanoags on this copy and get their assent
So-
to whatever we.
So the goal is to get a historically accurate description, but one that,
Well, one that's sensitive
yeah, okay.
to all concerned.
Okay,
Do we,
Okay.
take a vote?
So moved.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, well,
Joe.
great, thank you.
He didn't ask us for money, he didn't ask us for any actions, just go, yeah.
Well, I'm asking you for a piece of property somewhere,
That's
so
okay.
we'll see where that is.
Okay.
To be named later.
Great,
Thank you.
thanks, Joe.
So when do
All right.
we build the casino?
All right, next item, discussion items, is a discussion on of the select board goal timeline and public comment.
So in front of you, we'll see a draft of a timeline we put together. I know we talked about this briefly last Tuesday. So this just solidifies, we'll be holding our workshop on June 17th from 11 to 3 at Public Safety. We will solicit board and committee feedback prior to that, public feedback prior to that, at our June 3rd meeting. Any input that has come in so far, we'll share. If you can submit any potential goals that you would like to discuss, if you get those to us by June 3rd, we'll get them prepared and ready to discuss on the 17th. We're just gonna have a running list as we bring those down and refine them at the workshop.
So just
And
to
then,
be clear, that says that we're both looking in this workshop to refine the town, update the town's goals,
yes,
but also talk about the town administrator's goals for the upcoming year.
yes, because I don't think you can develop my goals until you make sure that our, and our strategic goals, overall goals may not change. It may be the tasks we have assigned to them underneath them, but we definitely need to update, and we have achieved some of the strategies that we set out, back in 2023 and 2024. So we'll discuss that on the 17th. In our July meeting, we will review, and update, solicit any more public feedback, for anybody who is not able to attend that workshop. And then we will adopt the final, select board strategic town goals at our first meeting in September. I wanted to hold that off until September to give people who are not here during the summer a chance to comment and participate, when they return to town in September.
We are taking one for the team on the 17th. Ooh, it's a long day.
It's going to be a very long day. You are going to be with
We
us,
still have a select board meeting that night.
and you have a select board meeting that night, yes. I will,
But she said
we will
she'd
feed you.
us.
I will feed you, I promise.
Be kind to try not to do an executive session on top of it.
And then just attached to, no, we're definitely having an executive session. You got me all day. And just attached to that is the most recent copy of the goals that are on the website, for you to start reviewing before we get to, our next meeting.
So for May 13th, the second sub-bullet, solicit public feedback, or is there some, are we publicizing? There's a
We're gonna
plan
start to publicize that. Our town goals at medfield.net email address is live, so people who would like to submit feedback can do that, using that link.
Okay. Any other comments?
Nope.
We're good?
No, we've committed to this.
Okay.
We're in.
We at least started in this direction last year with the town goals. It wasn't as organized and structured as this, but we did take time to let people see what we were changing so that we at least provided comments. This might, I can think of last year, I think it was Hilly that brought in the idea that it would be good for us to have sustainability goals, which we hadn't really, I thought was a good ad. So there may be other areas, you don't have to have perfect goals, you just have to have general directions to at least catch our attention and get us to think about it. Okay. Next, vote to appoint Maria De La Fuente to the Metropolitan Area Planning Council as a municipal government representative for a term of 3 years.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Done. Let's see, next is vote to approve the contract with Ballard Max Sales and Service, Inc. for a new Mack GR 42F large six-wheel dump truck for $273,598.
So moved.
It's not ready yet. We have some things I want to talk about, but.
Go ahead, go ahead.
So, I'm the only one. So the only question I had, I sent, and Mark, I think you've already had the discussion, so we can, I didn't have a lot of comments on any of this stuff, but the questions that I had here, the way the standard state thing reads, it talks about, if we cancel in the middle, it's like a service contract. You can send us what you've spent so far, and this is a dump truck that we're buying as off a list. And according to the quote we got, it said payment is due upon delivery. So building in a
That's-
cancellation clause doesn't make any
That's not-
sense.
That's not what our contract says. They're
No.
getting it from somebody else.
Yeah, but my point is,
But our contract is with this outfit, and we have a specific provision, our standard provision, that payment only after delivery, testing, and inspection.
that part's fine. I'm talking about the termination stuff. The town shall pay all reasonable and supportable costs incurred prior to termination. So in other words, if
Well,
we
that's-
canceled the order before it's delivered, we could get a bill for $160,000 for how much we've put into building your truck.
Well, that's if you cancel for convenience. You don't
Sure.
have to.
So-
That's a
so-
right the town has.
But my point is, we built in terms because of our stupid standard contracts that expose us to expenses that the supplier doesn't even impose. Because it's basically, it's a list truck. It's not a we're not building a fire truck that's custom built. This is a truck off their buying list that has a price. It would be like if we went and bought a new Chevrolet and we canceled the order and Chevy came back and said, well, it was a $40,000 car, but when you canceled it, it was only half built, so send us $20,000. And if you want, we'll send you the chassis without the engine because we haven't put that in yet. And it's like, why did we put all this cancellation stuff in? We can just cancel. I'm ready to go, why are we doing this to ourselves? I don't get it. So that was my big issue with the Mack truck thing. It's like, I don't understand why we sat there.
I mean, you could delete the convenience for the likelihood, there's other contract protections that, the big one I was experiencing was delays, huge delays, multi-year delays.
Mhm.
We have a deadline date here.
Mhm. Yeah,
No later than.
Right.
So that would be the only situation where you probably would exercise convenience otherwise.
so I'll make the contracting point. We built in a clause that basically increases our potential exposure. We can either delete it, and this is for the two of you to decide, or we can basically say, no, we'll leave this clause in here. We are committing now that we are not going to cancel this order.
No, I
We
would
shouldn't write
remove
this
it.
ever again like this, but we're just gonna say, no, we're not gonna cancel it. We're gonna, when they deliver that thing, we're gonna pay them $273,000, so this is a moot point. Let's not.
No,
let's
you don't
not
know what the
drag-
future has in store, you have no
No.
idea. So if,
No.
I would remove it, because if they're so in tight need, someone else will be standing in line ready to grab it, so no one's at any loss.
So that probably says paragraphs 15 and 16 disappear in
15
their
doesn't.
entire.
15, you're right, it's more like a fire truck or something
Right.
where it's customized,
Right.
and you may wanna actually go out,
Right,
and they do then visit.
right.
I don't have a strong feeling about that. You wanna leave the for cause in, 16A.
Well, if you do that,
Cause it's got
That's-
a, it's
that's
got a
all-
whole
that's
list
all
of other
fine.
things.
but the second paragraph under 16A, the only thing that should be kept is paragraph 16A, and everything else should disappear.
Fine.
That's okay? All right, so we have an edit. Paragraph 15 goes away, and everything but paragraph 16A goes away in paragraph 16.
So
And then-
moved.
Okay, and what we can do is approve it with that change.
Mm-hmm.
I forget now, how many, is that just one signature, or is that all of this?
That is all of us.
Yeah.
Select board,
Okay.
1, 2, 3, Christine and Mark.
So if I recall correctly, this is a contract that has already been signed by the supplier.
Yep.
So if we change it, it's gonna have to get re-signed.
Yep.
Which probably says we should re-sign one that's not signed by the supplier.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm
I
guessing,
would
you'll
not-
have-
I would
if I
not
was the
sign that.
supplier, I would have said, this looks really good, yeah, let me sign this
Yeah,
real
you
quick.
can't cross out with a signature already on it, so.
Okay, so that one's gonna be a review
Just for
cycle.
context, this is off a state bid list, I believe. There's a whole nother contract that you haven't even seen that is a framework for anyone who's on the state bid list, so
Well, I hope that contract doesn't have this kind of crap in it. 'cause
It
this is
could.
Just,
it
it's,
may.
you've heard me before about using a service contract form for
Yeah, I know.
just a commercial item, but, so I take it we're not gonna sign it tonight because we're gonna have to modify that contract.
it's
to get rid
pre-signed,
of
yeah.
Those things and then make sure that they're still willing to sign it.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, but that one I read and it's like,
That's what it
this
is.
Best
this
of
is stupid.
intentions.
Okay, so that's deferred for now. The next one, vote to approve the contract with Beta Group for the design of the shared streets and spaces safety improvements contract for $31,000.
So moved.
And let me just quick,
It's a much more minor.
yeah, I think that was just strictly edits and you made both of them, so that's fine. So, second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye,
Aye,
aye.
aye.
Okay, that one passes. That thing about, mailed by or mailed to, that's how I check to see if we're using the bad template. I go to that paragraph
Yeah,
and it
you're
still
right.
says
No, you're right.
mailed by,
You're
yeah.
absolutely correct, it should have been two.
Ben seems to have flushed the bad template out of everything I get from him now, but this one crept back in somehow. That's the one thing I look at to see if I'm still looking at it, the old rejected template. Let's see, number 7, vote to sign the contract amendment with Environmental Partners for peer review services in connection with the Medfield State Hospital. The value of the contract is $27,300, and it provides support for the Planning Board and Board of Health. And it looks like just one town signature is needed, but I don't know if it's you or me, Christine.
I'm looking right
Contract.
now.
And it's for the review of the Trinity site plan.
Yeah, you can authorize me to sign it. But I
Okay,
think Bill has a question.
okay.
Yeah, I just want, Bill Massaro, Evergreen Way, I just wanted to point out that this is strictly for the subdivision and that you're going to have a MEPA submittal from Trinity somewhere in the next couple of months. I would hope that you'll have somebody do a peer review on that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, last time it was, I mean, I'll do my thing. I mean, you know what my main issue is still the water issues, but I mean, other than that,
Okay.
we'll need to look at that.
Yep, so noted. Okay. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Aye, okay. Next is, I should have said that was authorizing the town administrator to sign.
Yes, I'll sign that.
We have that on record.
Next item, vote to authorize the town administrator to sign the zoning board of appeals application for the COA garage.
Yay.
I know, finally.
Yay.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Long overdue.
Next is, vote to sign the contract with Aqua Barriers, Inc. for the roof replacement at Kingsbury Gristmill for $22,250.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
That one's done, okay. Next is, item 10 was vote to approve the contract for lawn mowing at the former Medfield State Hospital, but the only thing that was in the packet was the invitation for bid.
Yes, so, just because of the time frame, we have had, the DPW graciously, cover the state hospital for right now. We wanted to try to move this along quickly, so we actually opened the bids yesterday. The lowest bid, was a company called SSE LLC, doing business as Great Horizons Property Services and Landscaping. They did submit all of their information, including references, so I've called 2 references already. I do want to touch base with 2 more references. So I would ask that you vote to sign the contract pending the review of those 2 additional references. So the contract up there will be for lawn mowing over 2 years which will come up until the time, that Trinity will be purchasing the property, so next October.
So the template will be the same contract. we've
The
used.
template was in the package, yep. Yes.
So what was the dollar value?
So it's a per mo value, so it's,
What's the expected dollar value?
Yeah, so I would be intrigued to see how they did that. So we've got 5 zones. I would like to see how they're billing that out. So not hourly, if they're doing it by zone. And then as I was talking to you earlier, I experienced the firsthand trying to work through last year's situations up at the state hospital. So I just wanna make sure, my concern, Gus, is that, we have somebody come in, I don't want any gray area, either and Brittany and I were confirming this earlier, if there are 5 sections, and I know that, Jean needs section 5, which is the front hill cut every week, so that's, in theory, 4 times a month. In past years, we've had it so that all the other zones were done at least, basically twice a month, but that didn't always happen, right? And then I think our biggest bone of contention is always the backfield, and the area that is behind that little dilapidated house. So I wanna make sure, if you're gonna be walking with these guys, that they understand what they're agreeing to, and we look at the dollar value and make sure that it's making sense for us.
When you say the backfield,
The north field,
yeah, but
And then
what's the boundary?
it's
North-
a tree line, that little
Yeah.
weird shaped property on,
On the
behind
left?
the paint shed.
Just the
is-
paint shed,
is-
just
yes,
that, okay,
that
what
is
I
the
was getting
tree
at
line,
is,
yes.
that hill is not ours, that's Dover's.
correct.
Yes, in the north
Okay.
field, yes,
Okay.
what Mo and Bobby said that they would do is they would put some snow stakes out at the boundary line, so that right away they know where that boundary
Okay.
is, because
Okay.
that is kind of tricky to understand where that is, so they
Right.
said they would help us out on
I
that.
keep getting run over, just so you know, just whatever boundary stakes get put up there, they always get run over and everything else.
So that's all right, at least we're not doing the whole field, that's,
Yeah, no,
Like
they're
shed.
not, they know that they're not doing the whole
Okay.
thing, yes.
okay.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, but can I get an answer to my first question about ballpark, what do we think it's gonna cost?
So per mow, so that's the weekly mow on that lower front lawn, and the bi-weekly of each of those areas, it's $18.75, so $1,875.
And that would, so basically, say that again, it was, so that's 2 mows of 5, but 1 of everything
Yes,
else? And
yes.
that's $18.75?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep,
So that would be twice a month, and how many months is the mowing season?
I think it's 23 weeks.
23 weeks, so let's call it 24 weeks, so I could divide it and get to 12. And then it's about 2,000, I'm just gonna say in round numbers, it's 2,000 times 12, so it's 24,000. The reason I'm asking that question is if we're just gonna approve a contract with the understanding that we're trusting that you all are gonna make you will use your judgment that A, they're reliable, B, that their references check out. I would kind of like to know whether we're making a $2 million decision or a $20,000
Yeah,
decision.
no, not a $2 million decision, no.
And this is not for fall pickup, this is strictly
No.
cutting the lawn, so it's more or less May through, let's call it October, and then kicking it again next October. So we have another contract we're gonna have to do with somebody for fall cleanup.
No,
No,
we're going to use other services for fall cleanup.
Yes.
We might use them in-house with DPW on an overtime basis.
That's what I'm getting at,
Yeah.
is that there's another contract and another agreement to be had, because these guys can't come
We
in
would just do it
next May
in-house.
without having anything picked up,
No,
so,
no, no.
okay.
We're gonna do it in-house. As you know, with the LDA extension, we were given $50,000 for this fiscal year, $50,000 for next fiscal year to do that from Trinity.
And then, again, the other thing we saw last summer was the complete and utter growth of the weeds and gunk all along the edges. So again, when you do the walkthrough, which I believe you said you're gonna be doing, they understand the edges, the sides of the building, so it doesn't look like just one big weed overgrowth.
Yep.
Okay.
I think they called that weed whacking or something.
Yep.
Well,
Yep,
we
that's
called
it.
it, we've
Yeah.
called it that in the past, but it hasn't happened. That's why I just wanna make sure there's no gray area.
I think you just answered my question. Alongside the buildings, the growth alongside the buildings,
Disgusting.
especially over the basement windows and everything else, definitely needs to be done because it opens it up for security break-ins and everything else, so. I couldn't see that reading through what was in the data
Right,
package.
and my
but-
worst fear, this is like the one contract in my 3 years, that every year it comes up, it's like, it becomes a bigger issue than you would think, right? And my concern is that if these guys understand that they need to submit on a monthly basis what they've truly done, and we can confirm that they've truly done it, and they've met to the standards of what we believe is in the contract. I just wanna make sure the contract has, so it's not like, ooh, we didn't really quite say as clearly as we could. Because a couple years ago, it was immaculate up there, and then unfortunately, in the last 18 months, it hasn't been that great.
Yep.
We need to
And
get
we
it
had the
back
same
on.
contractor for both of those, so I,
Okay.
think there were
So I
extenuating
just want to stress
circumstances.
again, I mean, it's got to be more than just the fields, or if that's the definition and the scope of work, you got to get that stuff around the buildings. It's very important. You've also had a couple break-ins over the last couple of weeks, too. So.
And I saw that.
They're constant and have been since we bought the property.
Yeah, but if you can get away from the windows, at
But
least you can see.
Even when we weed
See.
back the windows, it doesn't keep people out. It allows us to see them better, but it does not deter them from breaking in.
But it just needs to be done, that's
Yep.
all.
For anyone who's interested in reading an interesting report on exactly what Bill is talking about and Christine's talking about, I think in the police log in Hometown Weekly, the most recent one, there was an account of, I think, 1 or 2 vehicles pulling in. The thing that was impressive is five people, but I forget whether it was 2 vehicles or just 1. They actually were wearing like asbestos masks. So it wasn't even like they didn't know what they were doing. They knew where they were going, and they knew it was dangerous, and they were doing it anyway. So that was sort of wild. But that was one of the more intriguing police reports that have shown up in the police log in the Hometown Weekly in a while. So are we okay pre-approving? Basically, what we're doing is delegating the decision on finishing this contract to the town administrator.
I have complete confidence in our new assistant town administrator and our town administrator. This is like the first contract, we go, okay.
Yes, and Frank, if you're out there, that doesn't say anything about you. It's just a vote of confidence about Brittany. He might be watching, because he probably already misses us.
Can we give a tour of the office then?
You can give a tour of the new
Yes,
office.
tour of the new office, yes. Yeah, just pending the calling or the checking of 2 additional references. I've done 2 already, but I would like to call 2 more.
Yeah, and they were, just to clarify, this was the lowest, most responsible bidder
Okay.
for this project.
And the first two references checked out. We're not just trying to get a good average.
Yes,
Okay.
they did, and one was for, it sounded like a big industrial, like 50-acre property, and then one was for a golf course, and then they also referenced this, they have the city of Salem and some of city of Boston, was 2 references, so I wanted to call those 2 cities as well.
And can you say again that your criteria for selecting them was not just simply lowest, but lowest and most responsible?
Lowest and most responsible.
Okay.
I would move to approve the contract for lawn mowing at the former Medfield State Hospital, subject to the Assistant Town Administrator completing the reference checks.
All right, second that?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Next, request from Belforge to spray the front lawn of the state hospital for ticks and mosquitoes at the expense of Belforge.
So moved.
I think we need to talk about this one.
Are you hoping the wind blows down towards Copperwood? Is that that was so quick.
Do you have an explanation on that? Because I have questions.
Happy to answer your question, Gus, but we had our kids' event this past weekend. We probably pulled 6 ticks off of just our tents and tables, so it's
Where
loaded.
did
The kids
you
were
have that?
rolling all, in the front.
In the front lawn.
Kids are rolling all over the lawn. So we wanted to work with a company called Pure Solutions. They've been in business for 19 years with eco-friendly solutions. It's a combination of natural essential oils and soap, and it completely biodegrades within 3 weeks. So
I
they
think
would
the
be constantly coming back.
And I think the key thing is gonna be, just because so many of my neighbors have it done too, is that, so you're getting that lawn cut once a week, making sure that any high growth is cut down as much as possible, because if the grass is low, they're not gonna hang there. But I think right now what you're catching is, we're just starting to get that area cleaned up, and it's,
And there's a ton of
and this is a
poison
really
ivy.
bad tick season. They've said that multiple times in the
Yes.
press and on TV.
So the reason I had questions was that I've read enough articles about the mosquito spraying and the damage that it does, even some of the eco-friendly stuff. I haven't read enough to know definitively that the eco-friendly stuff is not a problem. I've got neighbors that spray, actually my former neighbor did, and they used, I think it was a combination of eucalyptus oil, and I don't know if it was citronella. They were primarily concerned about ticks because they had a dog. We have a dog too. I've also gotten a bunch of flyers through the mail from Mosquito Ranger and Mosquito Joe, and I've read them because we don't spray our yard, but our neighbors spray theirs. And I've gone out and checked on the guy before, especially if they're coming on a day that the wind is blowing in our direction. We don't want that stuff in our yard. But both of those, or at least one of those, I think both of them, in the flyers, it says environmentally friendly option available. So even though they come across like they're using, they have a reputation of having environmentally friendly stuff, they do, but that's not what they default to, apparently, because they basically are saying that's an option that you can get. So I'm on my guard about some of the companies that do that. Now, it sounds like if you've looked at it, that opens things up a little bit. I do have a concern about anybody spraying town property other than the town, just on general principle. And I also know last year, I've read articles about, you kill all the mosquitoes, and what happens is you kill all the dragonflies. So when you take all the food sources for the good bugs, you basically aren't doing yourself any favor. I mean, a couple of years ago, we were talking about no mow May. And now all of a sudden, we're talking about taking everything down once a week and spraying on top of that. So I have some reservations, certainly for, if it takes care of ticks and mosquitoes, that's a little different. But I really question whether if we were to cut every week, whether ticks don't like cut grass. So I'm a little surprised, unless the grass was high, that kids were picking up ticks if they were on a mowed area.
No, yes, it was mowed, and we got 6 ticks.
Because my other question.
It was mowed on Saturday.
Yeah, so my other question is, we've owned this property for 14 years. We've run car shows on it, we've run nighttime movies on it with Coolidge Corner, and for not 14 years, for 11 years now. We haven't had a problem, but now we do. Now I think what you're saying is, because you actually experienced something in this last time. I'm a little baffled by that.
I think too, where you have it is you're going to have deer and other wild animals roam that significantly more than you would up on the smaller grass that you typically have your bell forage. So I think that's what you're being exposed to, is where we're having people now. And at the car show, most people are standing, walking. You get people sitting on the ground, listening to music. I think right now this is also peak of the season where it's just warming up. They're coming out in droves. I think if we did, I personally wouldn't be opposed to one spray just to kind of get the beginning of the season.
You got, well, for sure.
I just want to say, so there have been several articles in the Globe. There's a new tick-borne disease and everything else, and this year is particularly a banner year for ticks because of the last winter. So it's been published that, so if you weren't seeing them before, it's probably because this is going to be a major season.
I took 2 off of Rooney, just literally walking down the street. He didn't stick his head in anything, and all of a sudden he came home. Like, how the heck did you get a tick on you?
I could tell you last year out in high grass was not as bad as it is. It was worse than it is this year in that same high grass. So it's not like, I'm not saying there's no ticks around. I'm saying that I have reservations about using insecticides on insects because you're actually working against yourself in some cases. This doesn't sound like an insecticide. So you've looked into it, that's fine. I'm expressing a reservation about this as a policy is what I'm really saying.
Sure.
I am willing to go along with, if the 2 of you are happy to do that, I'm willing to do that, and we'll see how that all works out.
I'm not opposed to it, especially right now, to get ahead of it, while we're just about to enter June. I don't think they're gonna be a massive problem come August,
Right.
but where we are right now, and you've got so many events coming up, I'd rather be safe for the residents and guests that are coming.
Pete?
I'm fine with it. I
Okay.
think that Gene will monitor it and just only do it as needed.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I think the
it
fact
might-
that the lawn was cut just the day before the event, so it may be that the ticks were there because the grass was longer.
Right, and so my point is, I would have thought, like Mosquito Joe or whatever, Mosquito Ranger, those were all good. Of course they all are, because my neighbor told me what he used. That's not true.
But you've warned her to make sure what they're using is the absolute non-toxic, natural, not the other
Well,
stuff. That might be the
I mean,
default,
that's-
yeah. But-
Right.
So with that understanding, I'm fine to go along with this. I still have concerns about this as a long-term policy. But-
Okay, yep,
Okay.
I get that.
Okay. Motion?
Motion was already made.
Oh, okay, then I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Aye, okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thanks, Gene.
Let's see, next, vote to approve the one-day liquor license request for the Black Harp LLC. I thought that was gonna be like an Irish stout company, but it's a real estate company, for a networking event at Zulo Gallery from 5 to 9 PM on June 21st.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye, aye.
Aye.
Okay, that one. Next, vote to approve the one-day liquor license, one-day beer and wine license, I think it said, right? It's a beer, it's not a liquor license, I think. Norfolk, huh?
Correct.
So it's a beer and wine license, right? Okay, so it's
The
vote,
Black Hop should only be a beer and wine.
hmm?
The Black Hop, unless they're a charitable organization.
No, that's not the one. It was the Norfolk Hunt Club.
No, but the prior one said liquor, but
It
it
did.
should actually be beer and wine.
Ah, okay. So I should have corrected, I didn't catch it on that
So
one.
the statute allows liquor, all liquor for a charitable organization.
Okay,
Everyone else could get beer and wine.
okay, so
So unless.
I don't
they're a
mind
chari-
giving a not-for-profit a liquor license. I think that, at least in the case of Norfolk Hunt Club, they said it was beer
They're
and wine event.
probably, well, they probably, maybe they only want beer and
They
wine.
only want beer and wine.
Yeah. So I'll change it for them and leave it open for Harp. Harp is not for profit though.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
they
okay.
can't
Yeah, harp
get-
is just malt
So
and wine
that, so,
only.
okay, so can we get a correction to the approval to not be a one-day liquor license, but a one-day beer and wine license?
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Okay, next, for Norfolk Hunt Club, vote to approve a one-day beer and wine license request for Norfolk Hunt Club for their biannual Grounds for Celebration fundraiser from 6 to 11 PM on May 31st.
So moved.
second,
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Aye, okay. Next, we have consent agenda. Well, I'm not sure why this one made it to the consent agenda, the two other ones didn't, but request to post a sign at the transfer station advertising the Medfield Community Market.
So moved.
second,
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Aye, okay, done. Next, citizen comment. Anybody have anything they want to comment on?
Well, it has to be signed up for it, right?
Yeah, run a loose ship here.
no meeting.
We love comment, so we'll take it at any time.
If it gets to be a problem, we'll deal with it.
We
Yeah.
don't like open meeting violations, so.
But we've learned that, we just don't say anything. You can,
Yep.
this is the one time you can come to the select board, say what you want, and we have to remain silent, more or less.
Now everybody's gonna sign up.
It's so much fun to watch. Miracles happen.
No meeting.
Start
minutes.
chewing. All right, in that case, no meeting minutes, town administrator update.
Just a few tonight. One, welcome to Brittany Franklin to her first select board meeting as the assistant town administrator.
How's it going over there?
And on June 3rd, we are going to have a public hearing from 6 PM to 7 PM on the Weston 27 roundabout design. And that's as we move forward through the Mass DOT process. And that's it. I have had very little interaction in Medfield over the last few days. I was attending my youngest graduation with honors from Ithaca College, so we have been out there. So It's hard to believe that he wasn't even born when the state hospital project started, but that's okay. And that's it for tonight.
He's retired before it's
I keep moving out this timeline.
Will you repeat the June 3rd thing? What are we doing on June 3rd again?
June 3rd from 6 to 7, we will have a public hearing, and then our regular meeting will start at 7.
Okay. And we're going to promote that, so everybody is loud and clear that that's the, 27.
And this will be just the first of several public hearings throughout the process, but we did receive the ICE Stage 2 approval, so the next step is a public hearing.
And this one's important, because if based on, I don't think it's gonna happen, but if 80 people showed up and 79 were like, heck no, we want stoplight, that would raise a red flag. But if everyone comes in and says, we understand from safety costs, move forward, that we can check
Mass
that
DOT
box
is
off.
just looking for public
Okay, just
feedback.
wanna make sure.
So anybody who is emailed about the project, we will email back, and then we'll start publicizing our public hearing notice.
And then, based on that meeting, all goes well, they can start moving forward, so there's light at the end of the tunnel. for
Well,
many.
there's a myriad of design reviews. We next move to what's called the OTS, the over-the-shoulder hearing with Mass DOT. And that'll be several days after the public hearing, where they will look at the public hearing input that we've had, and then move forward to the 75% design,
Okay.
50% design.
Okay,
Sorry.
good.
We just keep moving.
Okay, next meeting dates, as we were just talking, June 3rd. The one following that, June 17th, which is the all-day marathon, apparently, that we'll be
That is gonna-
going through with a workshop, followed by
Bonding
an
fest.
actual meeting. So that's a day you can come and you can get 2 for 1 on the select board.
I might be really cash that day, it's gonna be a long day.
The workshop should be casual. It's a working meeting.
Okay, and do we run straight in, or do we have to go back and get changed, take a shower?
So we are 11 to 3 on the workshop.
11 to 3,
and,
so
yep.
there is
Sure, we'll
time
do the
for.
select board meeting at
So-
like 4 and just get it over with.
If you want to do that, we could do that. We could roll right in.
Can we grant ourselves a 1-day beer and wine license? Just ask.
So workshop's going to be at public safety.
Okay. Probably if you wanted people there, you'd have to have the beer and wine license start at 11, you said? And we don't do that. It's noon is the earliest that we approve.
Yep, so.
Oh, well. So then July 1st, so we go on to our summer schedule kind of here. As far as, in the absence of catastrophic events that might change this, we have one meeting scheduled for July on July 1st, one meeting scheduled for August on August 12th. With that, select board member reports. Eileen?
Alrighty, so, since we last met, we did have a Wayfinder meeting this past Friday. It was really good. It was, the consultant that we're working with came in, gave us 3 design ideas. There was a lot of talk about this particular one that kind of jumped out, and the guy, the gentleman that represented our, contractor, actually has revised it, because he thinks if we made one small change, it would make a world of difference. So I'm finding it fascinating. I mean, everyone who's on it is thoroughly enjoying it. We like what we're seeing. As we mentioned, we may be using real estate in the front, just so we'd have a board that really gives a big layout as to where some districts are in the immediate downtown area for retail and municipality and things like that. And then I sat in the Parks and Rec meeting last Wednesday night, just to kind of get caught up and see what's happening. I'll do a public announcement for Katie. They are finding that people are hitting golf balls up in McCarthy Park, and those people doing it, might think, oh, no big deal. Well, when a tractor goes over it, and that's our taxpayer dollars right now, they're using those tractors, and it hits those, it becomes dangerous, and it can hurt the equipment. So can't stress enough, if anyone sees anybody up there, just nicely say, please don't do it. It's not allowed, period. There are signs, people obviously have ignored it, because they probably think, like, what's the big deal? But it is a big deal, and we don't want to see anyone get hurt when they're out trying to cut the lawn. Then I sat in the ComCon meeting, because they were talking about the Trinity intersections of 3, West Harding, Harding North, and Hospital and Harding. Purely from a conservation perspective, nothing to do with traffic studies or anything like that. Everything went well there. I know we have the parade coming up this Monday. What time does that start?
No, I'm on the parade.
Yeah.
It's 9:45 in the past, but I don't know this year.
So it probably starts at 10, be there at 9:45, and then be over to Baxter Park for 10 o'clock. I should know, and I didn't,
I just have a placeholder on my calendar on Monday at 9 that says go to town hall, so.
I'm asking selfishly because it's a really good workout class I like from 8 to 9. I was like,
Yep.
all right,
Yeah, it'll leave at town hall at 10.
yeah.
all right, sorry, so I can make it home and do a quick shower, okay. And then we've got high school graduation coming up between now and our next meeting, so that's a week from Saturday. We all just got our letters, so you can respond to more if you are gonna be able to make it. And then, one last thing, I just following all the high school sports, looks like the high school teams are having a stellar spring, so hopefully we have a few more buses coming through with state police, local police escorts. But that's what I've been up to.
Thanks, Eileen.
So one of the things that the select board has done in the past has been to recognize the teams from the high school that win state championships, and I would suggest that we continue doing that, and, because we haven't done it in recent years, but I think we should reinstitute that.
Help me with when you, because we have said it in meetings, like, but I'm curious, do we do something formally? Because I've said it with the basketball, hockey, volleyball, I've said it in my selectmen reports, like thrilled for the, but is there something
We
we
had
do?
the whole teams come in,
Oh, great, okay, we haven't done that in 3 years, okay.
and Evelyn actually had bought some little town pins. I think we gave each kid a pin.
Cool.
I don't think
the
we've done
town
that in 8
seal.
years, I don't
So,
remember.
haven't done it in the last 3, so I'm game for seeing it in my next 3.
remember it.
No, I know we've done it, but we haven't done it in a while.
I didn't even know that was a tradition.
Good, I love that.
I think we did it once.
So if we do it twice, is it a tradition?
I had a meeting of the Energy Committee, and they are just always exceedingly active, and they're very fortunate to have people that are just highly talented and skilled in energy issues. It's just a very high-performing committee. And that was it.
In my case, I had, last Wednesday was the Norfolk County Advisory Board meeting. They meet usually about 5 times a year, and this was one of those rare times when I managed to get in trouble by accepting being added to the executive committee, which is I'm the clerk. It's a 3-year cycle where you go clerk, vice chair, and then you're the chair of the committee. I have no idea whether they thought that was a good idea, but I have 3 years to try to figure out why. I did say when I got the call from Joe Reardon that I was reassured to know that apparently if they were calling to ask me if I'd be on that committee, apparently they weren't sitting there going, I wish the jerk from Medfield would stop asking questions at our meeting. So that was kind of a welcome confirmation that I've been doing okay. And then last Friday, the MBTA Advisory Board that I'm also on had their Zoom call on Friday morning. So the MBTA Advisory Board has, as I look at the membership, it appears that it has slots for virtually every town, at least in eastern Massachusetts. So any town that's close to possibly tapping commuter rail or subways or ferries or buses, they have a representative. For a number of years, I didn't realize that was different than the Norfolk County Advisory Board, so I was blowing their meetings off. But I've been going, and even though we're not as directly, linked to what goes on with the MBTA, I think I've mentioned this in prior meetings, they have a major structural budget problem around maintenance, and it's got to do with, goes all the way back to the Big Dig, and it goes back to things that the legislature has done in the past to try to get the MBTA onto a dedicated revenue stream. The problem was that they put them on a market stock type revenue stream, but they projected the returns would continue at the level of the peak stock market on the year that they made the change. So obviously that didn't work. To her credit, the governor has been working to build into her budget money to be able to keep the T going from the maintenance standpoint. For FY25, they had a balanced budget, but they took $500 or $600 million out of the reserves to make it a balanced budget, and that left them at the time with $100 million. And this is a multi-billion-dollar operation. The legislature's come through, the governor has come through. Effectively, I think they're working to try to get the T about $600 million for FY '26, which mostly stops the bleeding. The only problem is every single year after that, it goes higher. So the projections they had last year going into FY '25 was that by, I think FY '29, they were gonna have like a $900 million deficit, so coming close to $1 billion a year deficit in being able to keep things up. So they're not out of the woods. The director of the T, Phil Eng, who came from New York City, is widely recognized as having done a really nice job. If you've been paying attention to the T, a lot of the slow zones that have been slow forever because of construction, those things have all been fixed. So they're trying to do things like that that'll help. Brian Kane, who's the executive director for the advisory board, I think is a really sharp guy, politically astute. He knows how to, he's polished. He's trying to figure out the best way to represent the dilemma. It's a true financial dilemma for the T.
Yeah, because you
So-
can't have the riders pay for all of that,
Yeah.
but yet if we never use it and you're out in the burbs, it's
Right.
like it's a catch-22, right?
And the ridership is only barely getting back to where it was before COVID right now. And even with all that, the actual fares are a minuscule part of how the T gets funded. So anyway, I'm spending time with that because it's actually an important issue for the state. It's somewhat less important for us directly unless they come up with more laws like the MBTA Communities Act, but I've been trying to pay attention to it because they're trying to do some good things. It's just that the kind of numbers that they have are huge. And so, those are it's only been a week since we met, so that's all I've been able to do since our last meeting.
All right, fair enough.
Okay,
Move to adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Thanks for coming,
Thanks,
all of
Pete.
you that came.
So Gene, off this weekend, nothing at Bell Forge, and then
I saw Andrew bring up